In the summer of 1945, the world stood on the brink. The war in Europe was over, but in the Pacific, Imperial Japan fought on with a ferocity that stunned even the most battle-hardened soldiers. The planned invasion of Japan, codenamed Operation Downfall, was projected to be the bloodiest campaign in human history, with casualty estimates reaching into the millions for both sides. But in the deserts of New Mexico, a terrifying new power had been unleashed. The Manhattan Project, a top-secret endeavor involving the brightest minds of the generation, had successfully detonated the world's first atomic bomb. Suddenly, U.S. President Harry Truman, a man who had only learned of the project's existence after Franklin Roosevelt's death, was faced with a decision of unimaginable weight. The options were stark. Continue the conventional firebombing that had already devastated cities like Tokyo, enforce a naval blockade to starve Japan into submission, a process that could take months, even years, and cost countless civilian lives, or use this new apocalyptic weapon to force a swift, unconditional surrender. Truman and his advisors weren't just thinking about ending the war. The geopolitical landscape was shifting rapidly. The Soviet Union, a wartime ally, was emerging as a post-war rival. Some historians argue that demonstrating the awesome power of the atomic bomb was also a message to Stalin, a way to establish American dominance in a new world order. The bomb was not just a weapon of war. It was a tool of diplomacy. On August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay dropped the bomb codenamed Little Boy on Hiroshima. In an instant, a city was vaporized. The explosion unleashed a force equivalent to 15,000 tons of TNT, killing an estimated 80,000 people instantly. Many thousands more would die in the following weeks and years from radiation sickness and horrific injuries. The world was in shock, but in Tokyo, the Japanese Supreme War Council was deadlocked. The hardline military faction refused to surrender, believing they could inflict enough pain on an invading American force to negotiate better terms. They held on to the hope of a final, decisive battle on their home soil. Faced with this continued resistance and wanting to avoid a prolonged conflict while the Soviets advanced in Manchuria, Truman authorized the use of the second bomb. On August 9th, just 3 days after Hiroshima, the bomber boxcar headed for its primary target, Kokura. But heavy clouds and smoke obscured the city. Following protocol, the plane diverted to its secondary target, Nagasaki. The bomb, Fat Man, was even more powerful than the one dropped on Hiroshima. Due to the hilly terrain of Nagasaki, the initial destruction was slightly more contained, but the human cost was still staggering. Another 40,000 to 70,000 people were killed. The twin shocks of the atomic bombs and the Soviet invasion of Manchuria on the same day finally broke the stalemate in the Japanese government. On August 15th, Emperor Hirohito, in an unprecedented radio address, announced Japan's unconditional surrender. World War II was over, but a new debate had just begun, one that rages to this day. Was the use of the atomic bomb necessary? Proponents argue it was the lesser of two evils. They point to the projected casualties of Operation Downfall, arguing that the bombs and their terrifying finality ultimately saved millions of lives, both American and Japanese. They contend that Japan's leadership would never have surrendered otherwise, and a ground invasion would have resulted in the near total annihilation of the Japanese people. From this perspective, it was a brutal but necessary act to end a brutal war. Critics, however, paint a very different picture. They ask, was Japan already on the verge of collapse? With its navy and air force decimated and its cities in ruins from conventional bombing, was it just a matter of time before they surrendered? Could a demonstration of the bomb on an unpopulated island have achieved the same result without the catastrophic loss of civilian life? This leads to the profound moral questions at the heart of the debate. Can the deliberate targeting of civilians ever be justified, even in total war? The bombs made no distinction between soldier and civilian, man, woman, or child. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were cities, homes to hundreds of thousands of non-combatants. Critics argue that this was a war crime, an act of terror that set a horrifying precedent for the nuclear age. They question whether a nation can claim moral high ground while unleashing such indiscriminate destruction. Furthermore, we must consider the human element. For Truman, it was a decision made under immense pressure, with incomplete information, and in the fog of a war that had already claimed tens of millions of lives. For the pilots and crew of the planes, it was a mission they were ordered to carry out, believing it would end the war and bring their comrades home. And for the victims, the hibakusha, or explosion-affected people, it was the beginning of a lifetime of suffering. They endured unimaginable physical and psychological trauma, the loss of their loved ones, and the long-term effects of radiation. Their stories are a haunting and necessary reminder of the true cost of these decisions. A cost measured not just in strategic outcomes, but in individual human lives. The decision to use the atomic bombs wasn't a simple choice between right and wrong. It was a complex web of military strategy, political maneuvering, moral ambiguity, and the terrifying unknowns of a new technology. There are no easy answers here. The debate is not about finding a single simple truth, but about understanding the immense pressures and terrible consequences of one of the most pivotal moments in modern history. By examining all sides of this argument, the strategic necessity, the moral outrage, the geopolitical context, and the human tragedy, we can better grasp the complexities of war and the profound responsibilities that come with wielding ultimate power. The mushroom clouds over Hiroshima and Nagasaki cast a long shadow that stretches into our present, reminding us of the world we narrowly avoided and the peace we must always strive to protect. Thank you for watching. If you found this exploration of history thought-provoking, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more deep dives into the moments that shaped our world.